I want to thank you people for coming. I really appreciate you sitting through this. I say it's like blue in the face. I can't stand this film. It took 20 years to make this film out of 3 film crews. It almost broke up my marriage with me and Suzanne. Our privacy was gone. We had people around us continually other than being in the restroom. And it wore on us and wore on us. And I hope you got something out of this, because it was a real enormous effort. Beyond my vanity and my ego about it, I think the important thing of this film is you get a real good look at California underground and the underground world going back to 30 or 40 years ago. We're forgetting the South. I guess what's more important than me strutting around in it. So, ask me another question, Matt.
Well, can you get us up to speed since 2010? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been painting oil paintings, and I've had 6 museum shows, and life is sweet, you know.
So tell us about where your museum show is now.
Well, my next museum show is going to be in Bellevue, Washington, north of Seattle. It's a suburb of Seattle. It's a real big museum up there, and that's going to be the beginning of next year in conjunction with a book of all my works, everything I've ever done. My 11th book.
What's the name of the book?
Robert Williams.
No more business.
The father of exponential imagination.
The father of exponential imagination.
Yeah.
Wow. Nancy, you worked on the film. How long were you involved with Robert? Did you end up moving in at any point?
Moving in? No, I don't think they would have liked that. I think I started probably around the year 2000, do you think, Bob?
Ahead of these two?
Yeah, so I brought Mary on, and then we were really lucky to have Michael on board, who the movie wouldn't have happened without him. You just really learn about Robert when you see how he does his paintings, that we needed to have that determination, that commitment, that sort of passion to keep it. He was always inspiring us, because look what he did in order to do a painting. So we sort of rose to the occasion that we wanted to be to do a film, even though he says he can't watch it anymore, that both Bob and Suzanne were proud of, and that we all were proud of. So he did tell me he did like the film.
Well, it would be a great film if I just came in on it fresh and I was somebody else.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, I've been following Robert forever. He's always been one of my favorite artists. And I think he's going to go down as one of the, it was one of the great artists, definitely in the, I want to say the 20th century, but you made it so long into the 21st century.
This is the thing you say behind someone's back. Flushing it both in.
So you made it so long in the 21st century, you're going to be seeing one of these bridges between modernism and whatever's coming next. What's coming next?
I don't know, it's a surprise, maybe.
So what's your favorite Robert Williams painting? I mean, I'll go first. My favorite has always been, and when I saw it in person, it was confirmed because I'd seen it reproduced so many times, is Retinal Delights.
Me too.
And I consider that to be extremely...
Me too.
So important, such an influential painting. While you guys are thinking of your favorite Robert Williams, I'll ask, Robert, when you painted that, I remember you and I had this conversation. I know the answer to it, but you can go through. How long did that painting take you?
Well, I started in 1966 and I finished in 1968. I was working in the day with Ed Roth, and I was also, that was a period of time I was in my psychedelic cavalier period. when I lived in Hollywood, and I was quite an active person being a denizen of Hollywood in the 60s. So between joints, I did that painting. And, well,
How long would it
I don't sit here and brag about this painting, but one thing I have to appreciate about that painting was that there just was no other paintings, abstract realistic paintings being done. There's a guy in New York that was kind of doing them, and I got to meet him later. I asked him, why did you quit doing those paintings? He says, because the abstract expressionists were beating me to death. He had to move to Majorca. So that left me as the only guy in the United States doing abstract realistic paintings.
That was Matty Clarnwine, right?
Matty Clarnwine.
He's most famous for doing the album cover for Bitchin Brew.
You can do a painting like that, and you're not going to, no gallery would touch it, no magazine would touch it, you're a dead duck, that kind of artwork back then. Now it's real popular.
Unappreciated, or I think underappreciated in Retinal Delights, is there's a sea of toys, these visually colored toys, and you designed each one of those. Those are
I
not
don't like to think of them as toys out there. It's like psychedelic fixtures.
I mean, a painting that size, how long does that normally take you now? Now that you're not doing a joint.
That thing's about 5 feet tall, so that'd take me about 5 or 6 months now.
5 or 6 months?
Continually hammering on it.
Okay, you've had enough time, Michael. What's your favorite Robert Williams painting, and do you own it?
At the risk of trying to be too clever, the truth is the one that scares me the most.
Which one is that?
Well, it changes. I have a couple.
Oh, I understand. One scares you, and then another scares you.
There'll be one that I'll re-look at it, and it scares me, and I like that. I like that. Robert's really good at presenting that in paintings. Like things that are kind of frightening. And in a funny way, it's like recounting a dream for someone and then them telling you that wasn't a dream.
Mary?
Death on the Boards.
Death on the Board. Oh, it's actually in the show here.
Is it here? Oh my God, love that painting.
Oh, yeah,
it's so big. It's so
yeah.
big. I just love how giant it is. And I'm a huge race car fan, so yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
Nancy, when did you first encounter Robert Williams? Or Robert Williams painting? Which was first, the art or the painting?
Okay, so, Robert, what year was that? So,
A long time ago.
Yeah.
You were the punk rock world.
so my ex-husband, Mark Mothersbaugh, Devo, was in an art show with Bob and Suzanne in Japan, and we all went on a plane together. That was an amazing show. There was a lot of great artists in that show. That's when I first met him, was on an airplane. And around that time.
It was a crazy show, wasn't it? They spent $1 million on that show, and the $10,000 rug that they put down, and that got destroyed the first night of the opening. Remember that?
The film was kind of in production when you came along. Do you want to talk about...
Yes, so Robert called me up and said, there's these two girls that have been following me around, Anna and Angie, and he said, and they've been, trying to do this documentary on me, will you come on board and, produce it and help them? And when Robert Williams calls you up to ask you that question, there's only one answer, and you say yes, and then you have to, stay with it until you have, a movie that you can be proud of and you feel is great enough to live up to his art. Unfortunately, the two girls, one had a baby and one went on.
Unfortunately.
No, fortunately for them, but unfortunately to complete a movie.
They work for South Park.
Well,
South Park
do
had
they
their
now?
hand in it.
Yes, in the beginning, you're right. There was
money into this film.
Yeah, and to them, I never saw any, but not to us. And then, then we were fortunate enough to meet Michael, who came on board and then was like, yeah, sure, as long as you clean up all the stuff that went before you. So we took a while to do that.
But it was perfect. It was perfect to have all that archive of footage to take from,
and then we
just started
right, and then we did a lot of great shoots after that.
Yeah.
We did unicycle stuff, and we went to New York and shot all the the gallery stuff and the Northridge stuff, and so we added a lot that we had to shoot to support the movie. But we did have a lot of archival footage,
and it was so awesome. Big Daddy Roth, hello, people don't have footage of him. And it's awesome that we have this footage. And
fortunate there.
You the film's on Amazon streaming. Did you?
Yes.
Who had
So Cinema Libre came on board, and they became, they distributed it, and so we didn't get a theatrical release, but we've been showing at museums across the country, and we showed at LACMA and MoCA here, and ACMA and MoMA in New York,
San
and
Diego Comic-Con got
yes, we won the best film documentary at Comic-Con, and so it has this really great, live.
So what the show that's coming up in Washington State?
Yeah.
How much of that is from the core from that show that you had at Barnsdall 3 years ago?
About 5/8 of it.
5/8.
Yeah.
It's more than half.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah. That's more than half, but it's less than 3/4.
That's a Bob answer.
300 or 400 paintings, so I can't chase all those down.
But the Barnsdall show was primarily newer stuff, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Washington show's going to have a few newer things.
A lot more newer things.
Newer things. Okay. Are you involved in the lending out to these traveling shows, or how is that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then
I've got command of almost all the artwork now.
you know who to call when somebody wants a piece of a show?
Well, I'll tell you the problem with the collectors. Not only do collectors not want to loan out something that's on their wall, but collectors are real fussy to find out who they are, because there's a California law, if you sell a painting, you're supposed to give the artist 5%, so a lot of collectors sell stuff and don't tell people.
Oh,
so
yeah.
hunting down original artwork's a real problem.
That actually just got, they ruled against the 5%
They did?
about a month ago, yeah.
Well, it was unenforceable anyway.
It was unenforceable.
Yeah. But don't tell them when it's over yet.
Yeah, you might get a check. An extra check or two coming your way. So how many paintings have you done in your lifetime? I don't mean smaller sketches, but I mean, major oils on canvas.
Serious oil paintings, around about 400.
About 400?
Yeah.
Do you know if any of your paintings that you've made over the years have been lost or destroyed, house fire or stolen?
Well, I did a series of paintings in the 80s called zombie mystery paintings that were punk rock paintings that had a lot of gratuitous sex and violence, and the feminists really got hot on those, and I don't know what survived from that period. I know one fella had one, his girlfriend made him put up a drawstring curtain over the picture. They're out there somewhere, poisoned another generation. I don't know where they are.
Do you feel that, at some point, considering the risque nature of your art, the radical nature of your art, not only to just the art world, but to society's values, has society caught up with you? Is it less risque?
Well, in the 70s, when I got the church off my back, then later come the feminists on my back. So it was always like some moral question, So I'm just an old man, playing checkers by the park, watching the girls play volleyball. Oh, while I got the mic here, while I'm talking, an issue has got to be brought to light, and that's the write-up in the LA Times. I think it's important that I point out there was two points with Christopher Knight. He had one thing right and one thing wrong. One thing right was Von Dutch was an asshole, and the other thing that I think he was very, very wrong about is the decorations on the outside of this museum. I would hate to think that article polarized a lot of people, but I guess the chips gonna have to fall where they may.
So you knew Von Dutch?
I knew Von Dutch very well. Me and Suzanne knew him from a long, long time in the days back and working with Roth in the 60s. He was my childhood hero back in the 50s. I had a great deal of admiration for him back then. And then after I got to know him, I realized that Kenny Howard had some real serious mental issues, and he was a psychopath. You couldn't really be around him. He was just, he really enjoyed emotionally hurting people. And he could not control himself in a crowd. He would go into a biker bar and get up on top of the bar and start calling bikers down for their costumes. Someone would pull him off the bar and just beat the hell out of him. And about twice a year, he got beaten up pretty badly, but he just could not control himself. I remember I asked George Christie of the Hells Angels one time, I said, "Have you seen Dutch around?" He said, "Yeah, I saw him about 2 weeks ago, and someone took a primary chain and beat the hell out of him. I go, Bitchin. But he threatened to kill me and my wife Suzanne, and he was just an insane person. And he was very intelligent in the respect of mechanics and mechanical concepts, but he couldn't deal with people. And after you knew, when you get in a crowd, he would go absolutely nuts, and he referred to it as going Tasmanian. So, you know, he would ruin your day when you go Tasmanian. He would just completely ruin your day. It was so vulgar and horrible. But after you watch him do it a bunch of times, then you can watch him in a crowd, sit back and just like watch it happen. It blows people's minds that someone could be so vulgar. But I don't think I ever saw him a day in his life he didn't have a beer in his hand, and he was a chronic alcoholic, and that unfortunately led to his end. I don't know, I could go on with a lot of vulgar stories about Von Dutch, but I don't think we want to suck up all this time.
Has there been any blowback on the film? Has anybody found it a little too much?
No, people tell it's too long. You know.
89 minutes.
No, actually, the audiences that I've been at that have seen it have all been sophisticated audiences, so I haven't really...
There hasn't been... Mary?
No, and all the reviews were positive. Yeah, and there was a lot of them. So, and nobody ever, you know, went into any of that area that Christopher Knight did.
Well, I'll have to stand by Christopher Knight. You know, I've had a lot of critics really run me down badly, but he's always been easy on me as far as art critics. The art critic before him was William Wilson.
At the LA Times.
Yeah, at the LA Times, and he said, all my paintings were like a bad country and western song. And the biggest critic in the world was Robert Hughes of Time magazine, and he just come out and said my work was shit. And then there was Ken Johnson, I guess is still around at the New York Times, that said I was Norman Rockwell's evil twin.
People have complimented you calling you Norman Rockwell on acid. Now, you know, you and I had a conversation a couple years ago. Tell me that you did some research on Norman Rockwell, and whereas the film here, especially, there's one scene where you go through the Chevy engine and you talk about the fact that you actually are making this suspect that Norman Rockwell maybe wasn't as precise as you.
A lot of illustrators just pirate off photography, you know. And if you look at my painting, you see they're kind of well done and everything, but there's problems in them, and the problems in there because I don't copy photos. See?
And did Norman Rockwell?
Oh, absolutely. And Salvador Dali, a lot of them, and some of them got so bad that they would just put emulsion on the canvas and then take it in a dark room and shoot a negative on it, you know, and then paint in their photo. But Dali did it. Norman Rockwell did it. A lot of illustrators did it.
How do you separate yourself from that terrible word that the art world loves to throw, illustrator?
Illustrator. Well, when I was young and I went to art school in the 60s, early 60s, my peer group of painters who were all abstract expressionists used to refer to me as the illustrator, which was kind of a nice way to say, you know, you're in the wrong area here, pal. You know, you don't have the intellectual sensibilities to understand that things are two-dimensional. So, you know, that term illustrators, to me, has always been a slander. To a lot of people, it's a real honor to be called an illustrator, but to me, it isn't. It just means that I should face up to the fact that I should be a commercial hack, you know. And
you told me once you considered yourself a journeyman painter.
Yeah, I'm a journeyman painter.
What's the difference between an illustrator and a journeyman painter?
Well, I actually do paintings. I do things under the guise of being fine art. See, I've stepped into that bohemian pile of dog shit that, you know, I might have a lot of shortcomings, but I am a bohemian. I come up through bohemian ranks, you know, Roth and Zap comic artists and whatnot. You know, the reason that I can't hold a regular job and I have trouble with authority, you know, I'm a recalcitrant person that's always in trouble. I think I've earned my sandals and my bongo drums.
Bob, were you a hippie?
Listen.
Oh, here we go.
You know, I was involved in the drug culture before the Vietnam War. I got exposed to drugs in the late 50s in the carnival, see. So, you know, this hippie thing come out during the Vietnam War. I was deep in the drug culture in the late 50s and early 60s. And it's just, I think the press and a lot of lighthearted people created the love generation. You know, the people I'm running around with said, rather than give a cop a flower and just shove it down his throat. There was a serious drug culture at one time, and nobody really realized this. And in the event that there was not a Vietnam War, that drug culture would have raised itself up anyway, because it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Then when LSD hit, man, there was, you know, that was the ignition point. So
was that your all-time drug of choice?
Well, LSD would wear you out, you know. No, I like to do a joint every so often, you know. Sometimes speed. I didn't care for drugs that would anesthetize you, like heroin and opium and stuff like that, anesthetize you. You know, I like to think, you know. I don't like to lay out on a couch unconscious.
So to shift gears, we're in the Peterson Automotive Museum. We should talk about the hot rods.
Okay,
now, you've got a hot rod downstairs. Tell us about it.
Damn right. In my younger years, I took that over the bridge down there in Long Beach. I get it over 100 miles an hour.
The Vincent Thomas.
Yeah, the Vincent Thomas Bridge. I took that roadster over 100 miles. I crushed the top of that thing over 100 miles an hour, and you talk about a curious ride. I bit a section out of the upholstery about 2 inches wide when I come out.
Suzanne Williams, your wife, she's an artist, she's a peer, she's a hot rodder. Have you ever street raced?
Not her.
No? Okay.
No, not her.
No? Did you ever street race?
Yes.
Successfully?
Well, I mean, I've won races illegally, street racing, yeah. And I've lost them too.
As they do in the movies, did you ever race for pink slips?
No, hell no, you wouldn't take a chance like that. No, that's too theatric.
No?
No. Work on a car for 3 years and then take a chance of losing it.
What?
Nincompoop.
What's the most you ever won in a street race?
The pride of being the big man.
They didn't, not $100 here, $100 there. No. Do you think that the film American Graffiti, did that sort of like push the hot rod movement up? I mean, was it already?
It revitalized it. I'll tell you, there was a show called Happy Days. I don't know what to tell you about that, but you know, I couldn't watch it. There was a guy on there called the Fonz, and he's supposed to be a tough guy. He wouldn't have lasted 2 days in my world. I knew people that would hunt people like that. There'd have been a bounty on him. I'll tell you, in the 50s, you just didn't wear a motorcycle jacket. You had to have the right to have a motorcycle jacket. And I've been in a couple of fights trying to wear my motorcycle jacket. And it was, you know, the minute you got a motorcycle jacket on, that means you're Mr. Tough. Mr. Tough's going to strut around here like a rooster with his motorcycle jacket. See, that's what that meant. And years go by, and I'm at La Luz de Jesus on Melrose, and I'll just have to stand by the counter. Innocent young people come up there, and they ask the cashier, do you know anywhere here on Melrose where I can find a motorcycle jacket that was made by an animal that died naturally? I can believe I heard that. You know? And then the person turned to me and looked me in the eyes and said, you don't know where I could get a motorcycle jacket around here that an animal died naturally? And then I said, well, no, I don't, but I'll tell you, if you do find a place like that, get yourself a real small size. Someone's going to shove it up your ass.
Tell us about the car in the basement. I mean, pardon me, not in the basement, on the first floor.
Well, that's my 32 Ford Roadster that I've owned 50 years. I've owned that Roadster 50 years. And that little Roadster has been very faithful to me. I love my Roadster. I love my Roadster dearly. And if my Roadster had a vagina, I'd mount my Roadster.
The cars are smiling.
I have a question. So, you know, we have to save the planet and everything, and I'm getting kind of depressed about not being able to have a car anymore. Are we going to just make our own gasoline in your backyard?
What people don't face up to is ecology starts in the bedroom.
That's right.
You know, when you're on the freeway and it's all crowded and everything, you realize all this happened in the bedroom.
Okay. I can have a hot rod as long as I don't have a kid, is what you're saying.
No, you're younger than me. You'll be around longer. You face it later.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
What do you think of electric cars? Just as, I mean, have you driven an electric car? Have you driven in one?
I have driven an electric car, but you understand that to get that electricity into batteries, it sucks up a lot of energy.
You still have to plug it in somewhere.
Yeah,
they still have to turn the turbines.
Yeah.
So, how many cars have you owned in your lifetime?
30 or 40, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, most of these early on, you would have a car for a while.
When I was 12 years old, my dad bought me a 34 Ford 512 coupe. I hounded him for a hot rod. I was 12 years old. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but later I was living in Alabama with my dad. And my dad had a big drive-in restaurant, and he sponsored stock cars. This is the late 40s, early 50s. He sponsored stock cars, modified sportsmen, like hot rods. And then he started buying them, and he had his own stable full of stock cars. So as a little kid, I was always around dirt tracks and race cars. I'm really fascinated with early 30s cars. And then someone pointed out to me, well, you know, teenagers drive those on the street. They're called hot rods. And that changed my life. And then I found Hot Rod Magazine and all the car magazines. And, you know, it's like a religion. I was just converted, you know. That was my indulgence. It wasn't like a hobby. It was like an indulgence. I was too carried away, you know. It was like masturbation or something. I couldn't get away from it. It was just so anyway, I had a couple of cars in Alabama, and then my parents divorced. I went to New Mexico, and then I started picking up hot rods, picking up car bodies, going out in the desert and finding old Model A's and Model T's and stuff. So then it started, you know, it was like an obsession, because it was like a real obsession. And I just had to have the bitchinest hot rod in the world. I had an Oldsmobile powered 2017 Roadster, and I was the man, you know. And then all of a sudden, I had a fiancée, and it was a real good-looking blonde, and she just dumped me, you know, because she didn't see any future with me, and you know, she said she was a hot rod widow, and she dumped me. And I started realizing between my police trouble and me keeping jobs and this hot rod, you know, I wasn't getting anywhere in life, and I could, you know, I wanted to be an artist, so I said, well, I'll move to California, and I won't have anything to do with hot rods. Fuck them hot rods. No more hot rods. I'm going to be a gentleman. I'm going to get a sophisticated academic education where I can present myself as a person of knowledge and express my talents and do well in life. So I come to California, and I went to Los Angeles City College and got nominated for the dean's list, and I did the cartoons for the school paper, and then later I did a stint over at Chenard's Art Institute, and then I had to go out and I married Suzanne, and I had to go out and get a job. And when you're an artist, you have to go get a job, man. That's something when you think, that's like trying to get a job as a poet. Got a job as an art director for Black Belt Magazine. That lasted for about 6 months, and they fired me. And then I got a job as a container designer for Weyerhaeuser Corporation, and as a junior executive, but this was during my psychedelic period, so I wasn't exactly executive stock. So then they fired me there, and then I went down to the unemployment agency, and I said, you got anything for an artist? And they said, well, no. You know, I do this. I just went down there as a formality to get my unemployment checks. And said, well, we got one thing, but nobody will take it. And I said, well, what's that? They said, well, it's kind of a grimy job. They're looking for an art director down at this custom car guy, Ed Big Daddy Roth. And I said, give me the phone. So then I went over there and showed Ed my portfolio. And he said, you know, I knew you were alive. I hunted you up. So all of a sudden I'm making a lot of money. And I'm right in the middle of that goddamn hot rod thing.
Right, you dropped right in it. Yeah. It found you.
So I thought, well, I'm gonna still do painting at night. I get tied up into this car thing, and, you know. And I'm around hot rodders continually, just masculine testosterone, hot rod talk all the time, you know. And so I asked a friend, Jake, who sat next to me, I said, well, if you ever find a 32 Roadster body, let me know. You know, I'm looking for a real Roadster body. I don't want a coupe with the top sawed off, and I don't want a cabriolet. I want a real Roadster. And every day he come in, I say, you know, I'm still looking for a 32 Roadster. And after a couple of months, he come in and says, get your checkbook. I found one in Seal Beach. So I picked this Roadster up for $200. It's the one down in the show.
How much work did you have to do on it?
Well, a lot of work. I drove it around in primer for a long time. It was real beat up, you know. But anyway.
So as you know, if you had the dream car, is that your dream car? If money was no object, is there
if money was no object, I'd buy half the shit in here.
Well, okay, come on. You can only buy one. What's your desert island car?
I don't know.
What's your
I'm on a desert island. I'm on some kind of four-wheel drive something.
A desert island with a really great racetrack. What's your car? What's your ultimate car of choice?
Well, I guess it'd be a hot rod.
A custom. So you have your dream car in a lot of ways.
My lowbrow culture's got deep roots, you know.
When was the first art show?
The first art show I had, one-man show, was in 1980 at a gallery on La Cienega called California Alternative Gallery. And it was owned by a guy that dealt in old comic books, had the gallery. And he had this building and he'd give me a show. And Jim Corcoran and a lot of important people came, you know, and I was somebody for a minute.
And then, now, when did you show it? When was your first show at La Luz de Jesus?
86 or 7.
A few years after that?
Yeah, I was showing at the Psychedelic Solution in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then how did you end up with Tony Shafrazi?
Well, that was a long story. It took 4 people to get me in there. It took Debbie Harry and Andrew Shea and Walter Hobbs and George Horner that worked at Shafrazi's. And they just worked on him, insisted that they show me, you know.
Because you don't fit in with the program.
Well, that made me a blue chip artist overnight, you know. I mean, I was commanding pretty big prices then. You know, I've been with him 27 years.
Are you still with him?
Well, he handles me in some respect. He doesn't have a gallery anymore. I still have to deal with him.
It's like he's a private dealer, basically.
Right.
Okay, so you still go through.
Yeah.
You still go through. Oh, we can take questions.
Oh,
geez.
okay.
Sorry it takes so long.
For your larger oil canvases, where did your inspiration come from? Or did you sort of start the painting and evolve as you went? Or did you have the concept already in your mind?
I've got the thing pretty well pinned down before I even stretch a canvas. See?
You know, one thing actually I didn't see in the film a lot of is that you do sketch rigorously. Like you make sketches and sketches.
Yeah, I do a lot of drawing, awful lot of drawing.
Where are all your drawings?
Well, I sold them to people, and I still got a lot. I don't know.
Okay, because I've never seen an exhibition of your drawings, which are often, I've found, the ones I've seen are often as interesting as the paintings. What you put in, what you leave out, how you make the composition.
Yeah. Well, I used to save the sketches to give to the people that bought the paintings, but then the collectors would say, well, what do I need that for? I got the painting. Well, no, that's kind of a knucklehead thing to do. That's like buying a sword and throwing the scabbard away. Let me answer your question, because I see where you're going with this. You're trying to find out what's the situation I do to come up with these ideas. Yeah, what's the process to come up with something that's off the wall? Well, the fact is you got to come up with maybe about 17 or 18 really goofy ideas to come up with one idea that's got some lyricism or poetry to it. So I just all day draw things that are just impractical and stupid and don't apply to anything. And then I go back through them and see, has any of this got any ability to unite with anything else? And I'll go back to sketches I've done 10 or 15 years ago and see if there's anything there that failed. You know, that had rich imagination, that I can make that poetically work with what I'm working on now, see? So you have this big pool of ideas. The hot tip is don't copy other people. Don't ever copy other people. Come up with your own ideas. The bad thing about never copying other people is if you're a pop artist, everything you do has already been promoted. You know, the soup can's already promoted. It's already self-referenced. But with me, my ideas are so fresh that they go, nobody can relate to them. So that's the danger I face. So my only alternative is make them so screwy that it'll hold people's attention.
Yes, which is your favourite picture?
Pardon?
What's your favorite picture you've ever painted?
They're all my children.
Have you ever received criticism that made you change the way you work, or have you always just kind of brushed off criticism?
I do take the criticism very seriously. I just, most of the time, don't act on it. I'm very sensitive to criticism, but, I weigh it. But, I gotta have I'm facing my own demons, you know. People try to get me to, Tony Shafrazi worked on me for 27 years to change my style. I said, Tony, I can't, man. I gotta get these devils out of me, man, you know.
Did you say the show in Washington State is
Yeah.
in Bellevue is in January?
2019 is about
The beginning, the fall?
No, it's on the end of the year.
Oh, the end of the year.
Look on my website.
Okay, on your website. What's your website?
My name or something or other.
I always like to point out, Robert.
Google it.
It's Robert Williams Studio.
There's not a computer in the man's house.
I just want to say, you've been a lovely audience, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the art show that is going on the first floor that Joseph Harper curated, and Craig Stesick, if he's still here. And it's an amazing show. And now the Peterson is not only a car museum, but it's an art museum. And so please see the show if you haven't already, and please tell everyone about it, because it's really a great show.
And Robert's going to be autographing DVDs, as we said earlier. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.